Welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We have made it to Friday, so give yourself a nice little clap there or a pat on the back. Well done. You definitely deserve it. Now, as you can see, I am here on my own again. Mr. Agate is still, unfortunately, out of action for the foreseeable, so it's just me tonight. So please get involved in the chat, comment, speak to us, let us know that you're here. We absolutely adore the fact that you are here with us and you are joining us on this Friday night. So please, stay in touch, get involved, and be active. So, two things just before we start. Obviously, we've got the usual housekeeping to do the beer token book promotion, but I also wanted to mention that it's Indie April this month. Please go and check out our website if you haven't already, because there's so many indie authors on there that we have interviewed, and they're absolutely phenomenal. And I'm sure they would definitely appreciate your support at this moment in time. So if you've got a quick minute or two over the weekend, just go over there and have a little look. And see if any of our authors that we've already interviewed take your fancy, and maybe even buy one of their books. That'd be absolutely fantastic. So, talking about buying people's books, we have our beer token book promotion. So, I'm going to do my part, which is normally just look up here, and the book should appear. So, let's have a little look. I'm going to do that, and then, oh yeah, there it is. It appears. So, what is that book? Because you can't really see it from that, but it's a fantastic cover. And when you know what it is, you should check it out. So today's beer token book promotion is as follows. Okay, so it's Dark Missives. It's a debut collection from the author Dan Howarth. Sorry, Dan. Bringing together 11 stories that encompass the full range of horror. A holiday camp employee finds himself in the middle of a murder spree. A band's biggest fan discovers just how far he will go for new music. A detective investigating a series of murders gets pulled into the seedy underbelly of the city. A delivery driver gives into temptation and opens the suspicious package. And the owner of a gallery is determined to leave his own legacy in the art world. So they're some of the characters that appear in this collection of stories. And as you can see here, let Dark Missives take you on a tour of the roads less traveled in northern England. So obviously all set in the beautiful north, to explore what truly lies in the shadows. And this is a comment that somebody has said about Dan's collection. So Dan Howarth is one of the few horror authors who genuinely makes me feel like I'm dirtying my soul a bit. Lovely. When I read their work, that's from Luke Condor, author and creator of the Other Stories podcast. Lovely little quote there. We've got another one. This collection has no weak links. That's what every writer wants to hear. Every story has something, whether it's a splash of cosmic horror or the vibe of American Psycho. I enjoyed each and every page of Dark Missives. So very, very good comments there for Dan's book. So please support the authors that support the show and pick up Dan's book, which is just there in the corner. I'm sure he would definitely appreciate it because it's out today. It came out today. So if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. We'll put a link on our website as well to Dan's book, and yeah, please check it out. So without further ado, let's get on today's guest, because this man has done an awful lot. So it's going to take me a few seconds to introduce him. And he's also working under a pen name at the moment as well. So this is a bit of a teaser for you. So I'll go with the pen name first and see if you can work it out. Oh, don't need to work it out. It's right there. Jack Gatland is the pen name of the New York Times best-selling writer Tony Lee, who has been writing in all mediums for over 30 years, including comics, graphic novels, middle grade books, audio drama, TV, and film for DC, Marvel, BBC, ITV, Random House, Penguin USA, Hatchet, and a ton of other publishers and broadcasters on licenses, such as, now these are impressive, really impressive if you weren't impressed already, Doctor Who, Spider-Man, X-Men, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Doctors, Wallace and Gromit, and Shrek. As Tony, he tours the country talking to reluctant readers with his Change the Channel Schools tours. So he also works with school children, so he deserves a medal just for that. And then as Jack, he's writing a new series of crime thrillers starring Detective Inspector Declan Walsh, recently seconded to the City of London Police Department, known as the Last Chance Saloon. The first three of these, Letter from the Dead, Murder of Angels, Hunter, Hunted, and Whisper for the Reaper are available now. And I know a few more are available now, and some are also due to be released now and later in the year. So instead of saying ladies and gentlemen, I've gone with writers and procrastinators. Please welcome Tony Lee, and I'm going to make sure I unmute him because I didn't do that on the weekend, and add him to the stream.
Hi, man.
Hi, Tony. You okay? Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
I particularly liked the, I wonder if you can guess who this is, even though the entire thing says on it, Tony Lee, Jack Gatland.
Yeah. I realized that as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, we
Worst
can play a game.
kept
No, we can't.
secret ever.
Yeah, definitely. So, Tony, obviously, this is the second time that you've joined us on the show. Thank you much for coming back. I'm glad we didn't scare you off so much the first time round.
Well, obviously, it was so bad that Agus couldn't even be bothered to turn up. He actually had to concuss himself rather than speak to me.
Oh, I'm sure that's not the case, but we never know with Agat. He might have tried that because I feel like he definitely threw me in at the deep end on Monday. And yeah, we've been learning the ropes ever since. So this is fun. And to be honest, we're doing okay without him. We've got this far. Yeah. So Tony, obviously you're on the show today as yourself, but you also write under somebody else. So can you tell us a little bit about that and the books that you've been writing?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I mean, like I can and I will, but there's a bit of a story behind it. So I do have to kind of. And anyone who heard the podcast knows I do ramble, so I apologize. And I'm guessing that Agat decided he didn't want to be on here because then I get more time to talk because there's less of you guys talking. So percentage-wise, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, in May, when I came here last time. When I was on the podcast last time, we were sort of just at the start of lockdown, and we weren't sure how it was going to go. We weren't too sure if it was going to last a month or a couple of months. In our minds, we were all going, "Oh, by September it'll all be fine," and it wasn't, as you can guess. And I will state right now for the audience because. I know you know this and the audience don't. If you hear strange sighs or groans in the background, it's not some kind of weird dungeon. My spaniel is very unimpressed that I'm not paying her attention right now. And if she loses her mind, she's leaving the room. So I might have to disappear, but it's not like some kind of bound body or something like that. But yeah, so the problem I had as a writer, and a lot of people had, was the industry's kind of closed, and they were closing when we spoke to each other in May. And as a writer, I have 4, maybe 5 real kind of areas that I make my money from. I write film and TV shows, so you get things like development funds and options and stuff like that. You get there's audio dramas, so you get scripting fees for those. There's comics, graphic novels, things like that, DC, Marvel, etc., etc. And then I have 2 other areas. One is I organised the comic zones for the London Film and Comic Con and the other events that did in London. And the 4th one, or the 5th one, was school talks, as you mentioned in the intro, where I'd come to schools and talk to them about reluctant readers. The problem is last year, schools closed, conventions closed, comic companies imploded. DC effectively fired half of their editors, and that went crazy. And TV and film just paused. to the point where things that I had in development a year and a half ago are still in that holding pattern that they were in February last year. And I was one of the lucky ones, because there's a lot of writers out there, and the problem you had with comics was that when these editors got fired from, say, DC Comics, there was a lot of A-list writers and artists who suddenly lost their gigs. Their comics were cancelled, and so these guys started looking for work, and they would go to the competitor Marvel, or they'd go to the next layer down on comics.
Yeah.
And the problem is these comics were over the moon that suddenly these A-list creators would turn up. So they were putting comics aside to bring these guys in, which meant that everything was dropping down, and it was like a domino effect.
Wow.
And as I said, I was very lucky that I'm known in the industry as a fast worker. So people can come to me, and I was finding that people were coming to me and asking me to do work because they knew I could get it done quickly. But taking on the work to do it fast means you're constantly working fast, and it was starting to burn me out, and which wasn't good. And so by around summer, I knew that I had to do something different. I had to make a change because I'd just finished a Joe Satriani graphic novel, which is now coming out, but it had been very intense. It had been very, very quick. I'd just had an audio drama with Audible that was being done with Adrian Lester, literally recording his lines as Captain Nemo. It was an adaptation of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, literally recording his lines in his house in lockdown. And all the things I had were just going along. I mean, today I had something come out with it's a kind of a media marketing thing with a watch company, and it's got like LeBron James and Verbal and Kano and things like that. All these things were being done in the background. But I knew that if things carried on as they were, I was going to run out, and there'd be that point where I'd have to sit down and go, well, what am I going to do? And unlike a lot of sorry, go on.
No, I mean, this may sound like a really stupid question, but I'm just really interested why speed was such a factor for them. Is it because they were all shutting down as well, and they wanted to get these projects done so they could release them in the future? Or,
very much. Everybody was kind of aware that there was a ticking clock. So, and a lot of companies will like, there's three things people like in a writer. One is that you're friendly, or you can get on with people. Two is that you're fast, and three is that you're accurate and good. And if you can do two of those three, you're pretty much sorted in comics. So being fast and friendly, or being fast and good, depending on who I spoke to, seemed to work quite nicely. But then, as I said, we got to June, July, and it was changing, and I realized I was going to have to make a change on this. And I wasn't intending to do any writing like prose. I hadn't written prose for a while. And I had a conversation with two writer friends of mine, and one of which was a writer called Andy Briggs, who I've known for many years. He's done a lot of film and TV as well, and we've written comics, etc. And the other one was Barry Hutchinson, who is a middle grade science fiction writer who I've known for absolute years on the festival scene. And we had a mutual friend, Tommy Donovan, who passed away a few years ago. And it was suggested that I had a chat with Barry if I wanted to think of something new to do. And talking to Barry opened my eyes, because what I hadn't realized is Barry had disappeared for a couple of years, really. And the reason he disappeared is because he was writing crime books under the name J.D. Kirk. And for those of you in the audience who don't know, J.D. Kirk is one of the biggest crime novelists at the moment. His last book, when it was launched, went straight into #1 in the Kindle, in the Amazon ebook charts.
Wow.
And he's just gone massive. And he makes more in a month now than I think he was making when he was doing the entirety of a year as Barry, because he's become so massive. He's a megastar in crime. Jeez. And when he was talking about the books he was doing, and it was the fact he was saying about the ease, and it was just, he'd found his love for writing. And I'd really lost my love for writing at that point, because there was a lot of things I was taking on that I didn't want to do. And it kind of got me thinking about what I could do about this. And there was also an element of I've been writing now for 33 years. I mean, I started as a games reviewer when I was 17 years old. And I'm 50 now. And there was a part of me that went, I could start from scratch and I could see how good I actually am, because, a lot of these people are taking me on and asking me to do this work, and they're doing that because of previous stuff. And looking at this and thinking I could be somebody new, I could be a writer or something, and nobody would know who I was a great thing to do. And so literally within the space of a week, I'd come up with the name Jack Gatland, which is a culmination of both my mother and my father. My dad is Irish, as I am. And in Ireland, John is usually called Jack. So I've got an Uncle Jackie. Yeah. And my middle name is John. So I thought, okay, so Jack is honoring my dad, and Gatland is my mum's family name. So I thought Jack Gatland, it's a nice name. And there's more to it than just making a fake name.
Yeah.
There is also the Amazon algorithms, which are an absolute nightmare.
Minefield.
Because what happens is, if I was to release Declan Walsh by Tony Lee, Amazon would contact everybody who's bought my previous books and go, hey, fans of Tony Lee, which, well, my last book that went on Amazon was called Mr. Clip Clop Intergalactic Space Unicorn. So you've got these 8-year-old kids getting an email going, hey, little Billy, come look at this murderer and this serial killer book.
Yeah.
So there was an element of even changing a name for a few books would actually get rid of that algorithm.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing as well is, as a screenwriter, over the last 5 years, I've probably got 6 or 7 police crime procedural TV show pitches, because everybody always wants them. And they always go, we want a police procedural show with a twist. So, like, he's a copper, but he's a cook, or he's a copper, but his best friend is a donkey. It doesn't matter what it is. That's the twist they all want. And we went through a phase a little while back of clever person who isn't a cop helping out his idiot cop friends. And now it's kind of changed with some other stuff. And so I had about 4 or 5 pitches that had never really done much, because producers, change and broadcasters always move the top people. And I realized that I didn't really need to change much about the actual main characters. I could create a series of stories involving the same character. And I'd had this character that was used in 2 of them, which was Detective Inspector Declan Walsh. And once I started realizing these could all be Declan stories, then I think it was literally within 2 or 3 days, I'd already worked out the order of the books, how they were going to work. I was already designing covers for them. I deep dived. I was Alice, and I fell through that looking glass, and I was just running for it. I sat down with Barry and just asked him every question I could. I took information from other writers like Craig Martell. I was reading every book I could find. I bought every software that you needed. I just went straight into it, and it was, I can honestly say, it's the most enriching thing I've done in a long time, because suddenly I'm my own boss, and I can write these to my own speed, and it was amazing. So so a very long rambly thing to tell us about why you're doing it is because I needed to reboot, and it's been brilliant. It's been absolutely amazing, and I can't believe it's only been realistically about 6 months since I first put the first book up for pre-order. It's insane.
I mean, talking about rebooting, you literally rebooted, changed the whole system, and come back with an enormous speed that is just, I mean, you're on currently releasing, is it book 5 that's out soon?
Book 4 just came out in April. Book 5 is out in June. So they're coming out every 2 months, which sounds fast, but you've also got to remember is I wrote these stories years ago. The pitches, the murderers, everything like that. I pretty much worked out, over the last 10 to 15 years. It's the actual writing aspect is all I've really had to do. And added to that, I would also point out that I released the first book in November, but I was writing before that as well.
So obviously you had the story ideas and the basic outline and the plot, but what you've produced now is, like you were saying before, roughly 75 to 80,000 words per novel. And at the rate that you're currently at, you're releasing one every couple of months. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that is a ridiculous speed for most of us watching. We'd be like, oh, we'd be lucky to get one of them in a year and we'd be quite happy. So what's the process like for you in terms of you had the outline, but then you actually obviously have to sit down and write the books?
Well, there's it's a tough one because I did a tweet yesterday actually, as I'd worked out that with books 1 to 4, with book 5 added into this, and also the 15,000 word reader magnet, which is a prequel that people get for free if they join the mailing list. I'd written close to 400,000 words of Declan Walsh in the space of about 6-7 months.
Wow.
And Christopher Paolini, who's a longtime friend of mine who created Aragon and stuff like that, replied that basically that was one of his books. So, you know, it's there was an element of, okay, yeah, fine. But I was, as I said, I was a journalist. And so, you know, as a feature writer, a magazine writer, a journalist, you're given column inches and a deadline of hours rather than months. So I was very used to hammering it out quite quickly. My typing speed is quite fast. And I remember reading years and years ago a Stephen King book where he sat down and pointed out that he would write, I think it was like 2,000 words a day. And that was all he did, because 2,000 words a day was still, you know, a book in 2 months or, you know, 3 months or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was always happy with how I played it. And so the way it was working is I knew the murder. I had to have, or the crime that was being done. I knew who had to be the killer. I knew how it had to happen. And then I would sit down and I would write it. And I knew the characters. I had a vague idea of where they were going with it. And there was an element of planning in the fact that I had a treatment for each one in the same way I would write a screenplay. But there was also a lot of what I called, I've learned there's 3 terms for this. One of it is discovery writing. One is organic writing. And the third one is pantsing, as in writing by the seat of your pants. And what it means is basically you're sitting down, you're starting to type, and you have no idea what's going to happen next. And this is the version that Douglas Adams always used. You know, he famously said that he loved writing books because he kind of read them at the same time. He never knew what was going to happen next, which is why he blasted 2 people out of an airlock and then realized he had to try and work out how to keep them alive. And there is an element of that when you're writing it, because although I knew what was going on, there were several times when I'd be having a detective talking to a suspect and they're doing this back and forth. And then the suspect would suddenly give a line that made me go, oh, hang on. That's not what I was expecting them to say. And obviously my own subconscious had turned around and said, yeah, do you know what? Your plot's shit. I'm going to change it. And in Letter from the Dead, the murderer dies 3/4 of the way through the book because I changed the murderer. Because I suddenly realized that actually this story works better. And there's been times where I've been writing it and I've suddenly gone, oh, actually, that's nice. Or things in my head have just kind of just clicked together and I've realized something that actually does work in such a way. And I'm trying to work out ways of saying this without giving away major problems, so to speak. But there were other times when I was putting things together and realizing that a certain date matched something, and that meant that this could be this way and that could happen in that way. And there were certain characters in, say, book 1 or even in the prequel who were only supposed to be in one book. And by the end of the book, they'd found a way to be in book 2. Or they'd found a way to be in all the books, or whatever, you know. And there was an element of I wasn't quite expecting that. And aspects of when I was writing book 1, there were aspects I wanted to play on that still haven't come out, even though I wanted to get to it. So my plan at the moment seems to be I work out the story. I get it all in my head. I work out the start, the middle, the end. I work out all 3 acts and I get it all properly worked out, you know, written down, marked down. I start writing it. And then about halfway through, I'll stop. I'll go back to the beginning and I'll read through the book, editing it as I go along, because by the middle, I've changed everything. And I've suddenly realized that actually this works better this way. So now I have to go back and make sure I haven't got the wrong names, or I haven't changed the date, or I've just realized that somebody else could be an illegitimate son. So I have to change those sort of things. And it does work. I mean, and there's an element from my comic writing that works quite nicely here, because when I was writing Doctor Who comics, I would come up with an idea, I'd write it, and then I'd send it off to the publishing company, and then they'd get it drawn, and then I'd get it sent to me right before they would letter it. And because I was getting it back when they were lettering it, suddenly I'd come up with, I was 4 episodes down the line by this point, writing them.
Yeah.
I was able to turn around and go, oh man, I can add to this. And there was one book I did called The Forgotten, which was a Doctor Who 6-parter. And we got to the end of book 5, or part 5. And the BBC turned around and said, the thing that you've got at the end of book 5 that we agreed, you can't do anymore. Because it was actually a big reveal that they'd used in the show. And nobody had bothered telling us in the months preceding, because they thought we might give it away. So I had to go back. And luckily, because they were still about to release book 2, or episode 2, I was able to add things in as I was going back, little Chekhov's guns here and there to fire off as the story went on. So as part of my planning does seem to be, I'll go back about halfway back and start throwing in the little things, so that by the time you get to 2/3 of the way through the story, these things are coming and they're clicking, and you're thinking, wow, he's a really good writer, when actually I am seriously guessing my way through the first half and then going back and making it look better.
I mean, that very much ties into what Ross Younger said here with he said he's very much the same sort of process, except more like 25% and with more shouting and angry keyboard mashing.
I find what I do is one of my great workout things for my characters. As I remember Douglas Adams once saying that when he gets stuck with something, he would just go for walks or have baths or drink cups of tea. And so every morning when I get up, I walk my dog, and I'll take her somewhere nice and we'll go for a stroll. And as we're walking, I'll start working out what I'm going to write that day, just confirming in my head what the scenes are that I'm going to do. And often that'll turn into me talking through the discussion, or talking through the interview, or talking through whatever's being said at that point. So I'm not thinking the descriptions or the houses, I'm just thinking what the characters are saying. Which probably confuses people as I'm walking past them with no earpods in, just talking angrily at myself. But that's usually the point where I'll be sort of stopping in the middle of a forest and going, no, wait, hang on. That's not where I was going, but that really works. Yeah, okay, I'm going with that. And then the rest of that walk is then me working out how I can fit that in. So by the time I get back to the desk, I'm ready to go. And I'm all fired up because I've come up with a great idea that I hadn't even considered before that.
So are you at the point now where you still have material left that you're going to use and you've not got to yet? Or are you at the point where everything you're creating is now new and not something that you've got a skeleton framework for?
It's a little bit of both. Because when I started it, I knew I had a trilogy. And I'll be utterly honest, I didn't even think I'd get past the trilogy. I didn't think anybody would give a monkeys about this book, and it would just sort of sit in the corner dying a death. So Letter from the Dead was originally a TV show I was going to be doing with Mark Sheppard, Crowley from Supernatural, which never happened. Murder of Angels, the basic part of it, which was there's 2 bodies and they're both the same person, but literally the same person, including like scars and broken arms and tattoos and everything. That was a TV show called Duality. And then Hunter Hunted was another show idea that was actually called Hunter Hunted, so I didn't even have to change that one. Book 4, Whisper for the Reaper, I didn't have anything. And I was terrified when I started book 4 because I knew what I wanted to do in book 4. And it was pulling together a lot of threads that had come from the first books and also the prequel. And I'll mention that in a second. But when I started writing it, I knew where I was going with it. But it was nothing to do with anything that I'd actually done in the past. Whisper for to Hunter Magpie, the one I'm finishing at the moment, was actually a pitch called The Last Case of the Mystery Six. But I realized that didn't work as a title, so I had to think of something else. And again, magpies are something that I've always wanted to use in a title and work with it. The next one is A Ritual for the Dying, and it's basically talking about a lot of things that I'd used in other books, and it's like Greenwich and paganism and ley lines and John Dee and stuff like that. And then the one after that, which is Behind the Wire, was again another TV show about the Ministry of Defence Police, who are actually a police force that aren't military but go on military bases and aren't police, even though they're trained by the police. So it's actually this kind of NCIS kind of team. And I'm kind of varying on the next one between an idea I've had for ages about session musicians on an album being killed one by one because of something that happened during recording. Yeah. Or the other one is basically a person who has every year been killing people and leaving their bodies at Eleanor Crosses, which is these series of crosses that go up north. Yeah. But again, you know, I hear something and I go, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, write that down. So, Tony, with all these novels now originally being TV shows, and with a lot of companies, you know, the big companies, Netflix, Amazon, stuff like that, now looking at books more than ever for new material, you know, they're going to start recording again and stuff like that. If this series was picked up, would that be something that you would very much like to be involved in? Because obviously you've got experience in that side of things as well.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, I will say there are better books that should be picked up before mine, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm not being fake humble on this and etc. I mean, I'm a big fan of David Gatwood's Grimm books, and you know, J.D. Kirk's series is good, and you kind of need. There's a part of me that, I mean, as somebody who has worked with producers who have optioned people's books in the past to turn into TV series, I know there's a certain level of fandom that people expect before they get done. I mean, even now, there are companies that will ask you to write a comic book. And the second question they will ask after have you written a comic book is, what's your social media reach? You know, how many followers do you have on Twitter? Because they're already looking at it as, how many people are you going to, you know, bring me? So there is an element of, you know, yeah, I'd love Declan to turn into a TV show, but I think I'd have to be a lot further down the line before people started looking at it. You know, David Gatwood, I mean, you want a machine. David Gatwood has gone, he started about 5 months before I did, and he's rocketed up. I mean, all 4 or 5 of his books are in like the top 50 of Amazon. You know, they're this incredible series, and I think they should be done. Annoyingly, and this is a weird thing, and this isn't off on a tangent, I promise you. I outed myself at the start of March saying I did my I am Iron Man moment. But the reason I did it was because I'd told my TV and film manager that I was doing this, but I hadn't told my literary manager. Now, you'd think that obviously literary managers are quite important to let them know these sort of things. But as this was kind of not really traditional publishing, I hadn't really talked to him about it. But what I had to do is talk to him about it for audio. So to do the audio books and things like that, because he represented me for those. But the problem is they couldn't go to the audio companies and go, we have this guy called Jack Gatland. They had to say, you know, we represent Tony Lee. Well, he's doing these books as Jack Gatland. So there was an element of, you know, so technically I was doing this, as you're saying about doing for film and TV, but I'm having to sort of do it in a different way. And we had talked to Audible about possibly doing these as full cast dramas. Because no one really has done a detective series as an audio show on Audible. Really. They've not really played with that kind of thing. And I think J.D. Kirk or Barry is now doing a series of spin-offs which are being done in connection with Audible, but I think they're still being done as audio narrated books. I do think if it was done, I'd want to be involved. You know, I'd like to be writing it. I mean, if it was, you know, realistically, if it was done in England, I probably would get away with it. If it was an American series, Declan would have to be a New York cop or from Boston or something like that. It would all go completely wrong. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of police procedurals out there at the moment. And, you know, I mean, they're all part of the same world as well. I mean, I've got this complete theory at the moment, having seen the guest stars who are bouncing around, that between Unforgotten, Bloodlands and Line of Duty, you know, they've all got the same actors all bouncing around. I'm utterly convinced now they're in the same universe. But I think, I think that's a few years down the line. But then by then I'll probably have I don't know, being shouted out and hounded out of writing crime books or something. So,
well, Tony, I mean, obviously we're going to carry on talking, but we're going to do the new family member, and then we're going to move on to the writing community chat show element. So the people who are watching the show now can ask you questions live. There's already been a host of questions coming in, but if you've got any questions, send them in for Tony now.
I know people have asked about the swords.
The swords are causing a commotion at the moment.
The camera is static, unfortunately, so I can't show. But this one here is Excalibur, and this one here is the Clan MacLeod sword from the start of Highlander.
Wow. So we'll do the new family member, and then we'll get to the writing community chat show audience members and get some questions. So there's a little video for this, and here it is. So with the writing community new family member, what I've been doing, because it's a lot quicker for me, it's literally picking the last person who followed the show. But Tony, your job in this is you get to pick the GIF, not gift as Ian Rankin understood it, the GIF, the GIF that we send that person. So what we do is we give them a little boost from the show, and give them a bit of a shout out on the show as well. So our new family member today is an author of the Edalola Project series, and he looks a little bit like Stephen King. I mean, I've just gone off him. There he is. So he's there.
Oh yeah, okay.
He looks a little bit like Stephen King, and his name is Robert Harold, and his Twitter handle for anyone watching the show is @RobertHarold 666. So a bit of a omen there. So Tony, what are we going to send him?
What options do I have?
Anything in the world of the gifts. So it could be, we've had in the past, we've had people sending kittens, we've had people sending weird random stuff.
I think by the fact that he has 666, I think it has to be one of two gifts. One is Tim Curry in Legend as the devil, or the other one is Dave Grohl as the devil in the Tenacious D video.
Oh, amazing. Love that. Right, let's try and find that.
I absolutely guarantee if you type Dave Grohl devil, it'll turn up.
Yeah, definitely. So they're the ones that we need to send.
I will see. I've just seen that Mario's just said Lucifer, and I was tempted to do a Thomas GIF, but the problem is that man is freakishly tall, and I mean freakishly tall. I mean, I'm 5'10", and I was standing beside him, and he's like a wrestler. He's freakishly tall. So I don't think GIFs can truly explain the magnitude of his height, shall we say?
Yeah. So that's the wonderful GIF I think you were talking about. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. So I'm sending that to him now. If you're listening or watching this show live, or you're watching it back, please send that as well to Robert and give him a little boost. But now we're going to go on to the Writing Community question time, and we have a little video for that as well. Okay, Tony. So one of the first questions we've got, this is from Halo Scott, and it says, "Do you leave any Easter eggs in your books? Hints to others you've written, for instance."
No. I tried not to. There was a part of me at the start that wanted to, because I thought I'd be clever, but I didn't know how long I was going to be staying as Jack and not saying I was Tony. I think conversations wise, I think I've mentioned Doctor Who a couple of times, and at one point there's a character who has an opportunity to be promoted out of the department or promoted up, and they have this big explanation about why they can't do it, using Captain Kirk in the Star Trek movies as their basis. And it's the only time I've used Captain Kirk, but it's because obviously I did that. The only Easter eggs are really things for myself and my family. So in book one, There's a couple of places, Teddington Lock, for example, is used. There's places where I've been in the past that are known. So, for example, at Teddington Lock, I was on camera in a TV show called The Big Breakfast, and on screen I threw a giant styrofoam egg at Robbie Williams' head, catching him on live TV. And it's always been a thing I've mentioned, so I whacked that in. I lived in Birmingham for 10 years, so Birmingham's in book 2. I think the biggest Easter egg is the fact that in book 4, Whisper for the Reaper, I pretty much destroy the reputation of Hurley upon Thames, which is this lovely, gorgeous little village in Berkshire that as a kid, from the ages of about 8 to 15, 16 years old, I would go there every weekend in summer because my parents camped there. And it's a lovely, wonderful place. And there's a serial killer in there, and it's all terribly bad, and people die. And that for me was my own little happy Easter egg, if that makes sense. I've been tempted to there are a couple of names that are related to people. For example, in To Hunt a Magpie, the writer of these books is called Reginald Troughton because of Patrick Troughton. And Charles Baker, this pompous sort of arrogant MP, is based after Colin Baker, who is nothing like Charles, but I love him dearly. But I thought it'd be quite funny. And yeah, I'm just trying to think if there are any single Easter eggs. I Easter egg to others in my books, but not actually outside of that. Although I have mentioned, I've hinted towards a detective that could be Grimm. I've hinted towards a detective that could be Logan. So that's about it. Oh, there was one thing I did do, which is in the first book, Detective Sergeant Anjali Kapoor and Declan Walsh, the Detective Inspector Declan Walsh, are going to speak to somebody at the National Liberal Club, and as she's going up the steps, she's talking about the fact very excitedly about how she's been there before because she's a member of the Sherlock Holmes Society, and I used to be a member of the Sherlock Holmes Society. And I put this in, and in the second book, she's walking up she's walking up the stairs with somebody else, and she says about it, and as she starts talking about it, the person goes, "Sherlock Holmes, yeah, I hate it." And that was purely done just as a kind of a play. So yeah.
The next question is from Anya Pavel, and it says, do you think those swords will help you fend off an intruder should one decide to breach your domain?
No, to be perfectly honest. They're blunt as hell. And I have a loud spaniel, and she will just attack and lick them to death and say, "Where's my food? Are you taking me for walks?" But no, these aren't. Well, actually, I could probably hit them with the hilt, and it might brain them, but yeah, not really, to be honest.
So Concussion Agate says, "What's your favorite comic to read?"
I always wondered what the C stood for.
Yeah, it stands for concussion. So, what's your favorite comic to read, and what comic do you want to work on that you haven't?
Oh, that's a tough one because there's so many comics that I like. Genuinely, really enjoy comics still, and I'm trying to think of. It's not so much comics, but more writers that I quite enjoy. I will often, and this isn't because I know them or they're friends or they're British or whatever, but I find I enjoy anything written by Al Ewing, Kieran Gillen. Cy Spurrier's just done some incredible stuff with Black Knight. I love Tom Taylor, who I've known for absolute years. And he's just done Nightwing. And he's done a great job. And that's the thing that really killed me, because Nightwing is the comic out of everything that I would love to have done. And over the last 5-6 years, every time I've been in LA, I've always had meetings with DC Comics. And every time I've gone there, I've turned to whoever's in charge of the Bat office and said, I want to write Nightwing. I want to write Nightwing. And I've never had a chance to. And Tom has just nailed it to the point where I don't need to anymore because he's just done such a good story. But yeah, I think the only other comic I would say I wanted to do, and I was this close, was about actually I was living in Epping, so it's about 6 years ago now, 6-7 years ago. I was rebooting Captain Britain, and Mark Buckingham was involved, and we had an editor, and Marvel were really behind it, and we had these ideas. And then there was a big crossover that got delayed by like 7 months, and everything got thrown out, and I never got a chance to do it. And I think that's the one I wanted to do because I had such a great idea for it, and it never got used. So at some point down the line, the idea will get used again, but I'm annoyed that I missed that opportunity.
So this is a lovely question from Anya, and it says, Starbuck versus Highlander, who would win?
Highlander. It's easy. Starbuck has a gun. He would shoot him. Highlander would go, "Oh, I'm dead. Oh, I'm not," and then stab him. Starbuck doesn't. Starbuck loses aim on, unless Starbuck is firing at him in his Viper in space, at which point, pow, 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 and then Connor McLeod is floating dead in space, and he would be floating until he's picked up, and he would still be alive, and he just keep etc. But then when he's found and brought back to life, then he would obviously go and hunt Starbuck again.
There was a bit of a storm of comments when you mentioned Tom Ellis and Lucifer, and
he is a glorious man.
Yeah, I got asked if you knew him, if you could get him on the show, and then Mario is a big fan. Like, he's a huge fan, Mario, of Tom Ellis. He posts his pictures and gifs all the time, and he says here, if he gets Tom Ellis on the show, I'm done. My resurrected body will glow with golden rays.
That's wonderful, and that's the reason why he will never come on this show.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. So, any more questions, guys? Just get them in now. Obviously, now's the time. There was definitely some more. Here's one from Linda Rayner, and it says, how do you do research, especially regarding the police procedural aspect? Do you talk to detectives or read books, or are you a Google searcher?
I think there's a little bit of everything involved in that. I have policemen who I know, who I can gain research tips from on the detective side. Funny enough, Harry Marcos of Marcosia, which is a massive UK comic and book publisher, used to be a policeman, and he was, even when he was starting Marcosia, he was a policeman. So when I started doing this, he sort of sat me down and gave me some stuff on procedural crime. Other authors kindly led me towards other sort of ex-detectives and people who help out. There's a few detectives and ex-DCIs who will actually do talks. They will actually have websites where they help you. There's Facebook pages. Trauma fiction is a big one. Places where you just type in, how does this work? And someone will come back to you. Earlier on, I don't know if you saw, I was kind of looking down here when you were talking. It's because I realized I was going to get asked that question because I saw it pop up. This is the Bible for most writers at the moment. It's the Crime Writer's Guide, and it's by Michael O'Byrne. And as soon as I started writing, like 3 people contacted me and said, buy this book, because it is literally, if a body is found, this is how it happens. So this is the scene of crime officer turns up, and then once they're in, they will then provide this, and then forensics will turn up, but only these people, and little things like that. And I'd noticed a couple of books where people had said the guy has no idea how the police work, or things like that. And the one thing I wanted, I was never going to be exact, because if I was exact, there are things where I couldn't tell the story, because I've got to have it going fast, and somebody finding something on the screen and going, "Oh my God, it's this," when actually it wouldn't happen that way. I've got DCIs who scream at the TV every time Line of Duty's on, but won't miss a single episode. So yes, there's a lot of police procedural stuff. Is a lot of that. A lot of there are documentaries out where people have spoken. As I'm talking to you, I'm just going to quickly open up my thing, because there's a DCI who's just started. I don't know if I've actually got it here to hand so I can show it, but I don't think I have. Steve Gaskin. Steve Gaskin is a DCI who actually offers his services to crime writers. And you can find him quite happily on Google, and he will obviously answer questions and stuff like that. And then a lot of it is other things, like, for example, I've got friends who work in Westminster, so they were able to tell me about the sort of legality side of like Houses of Parliament and how things work in that. I've got what was the other thing? Yeah, it's just I try to find people. Oh, the Ministry of Defence Police, which is in Behind the Wire, which is one of the ones I'm doing. I'm researching that at the moment, and a lot of that is talking to somebody who was in the Ministry of Defence Police and learning, that even though they were trained as detectives, once they go there, they've got to learn how to use guns because they are given guns and stuff like that. So it's that differences that I don't want to make a mistake that glares. I mean, again, with comics, there was a joke where Tom Taylor did a story set in England and all the policemen had guns. But that's because, most people in TV shows, you think, oh, they have guns. Even when you watch Line of Duty or Bloodlands or things like that, they're always pulling out guns. Yeah. So there's an element of, people outside the country don't click. So I wanted to make sure that I would actually know that. So there is a lot of research, but at the same time, you kind of have to go with your gut, because if there's something where, if there's something where if you did it by the book, it killed the drama or killed the story, then you can't do it. You have to kind of go with the other way of playing it. But yeah, you've got to research. There's a great Mitchell and Webb sketch about medical drama writers. And I, honest to God, anybody who wants to write, find it. And it's these two guys just going, yeah, we were paid by the BBC to do this medical drama, but we didn't really care. So we just made it up as we went along. And then they show a scene of the drama, and it's so painfully accurate to half the things you'll see. I didn't want to do that. So, but I would expect probably 50 people now to read the book and come back and go, but that's completely wrong, and they didn't say this, and why would you not do that? So, I mean, there is one thing I did do, and I will say, is that Declan is given one last chance by Alexander Monroe to join what's called the Last Chance Saloon, and it's basically the police unit filled with screw-ups. But these aren't screw-ups. This isn't like Police Academy. This is these are the guys who are too good to fire. But they've done things wrong, and that's why they're in this area. But because it was a specialized unit, I didn't have to worry about cells or custody officers or front desks and all that kind of stuff. It's an office in the middle of nowhere in Temple Inn that the police have had for 50 years and needed to use, and so they've just given it to these guys. And because I did that, there was a lot of hoops I was able to get past because I didn't need to worry about it.
Yeah. Again, Concussion says, any marketing tips for indies?
Well, now I am one. So, the biggest one I was told, and it's absolutely true, is don't be a dick. And genuinely don't be a dick. I used to be a Covent Garden street performer when I was 20. And the whole point of performing at Covent Garden or being a street performer in any way is you have to convince complete strangers to give you money. And so you have to do a show, but you had to convince these people to stop, watch you do a show, and then give you money for the privilege of doing this. And there are people out there who are incredible at doing this. I'm not one anymore, which gives you an idea of how good I was. But there's an element of, within the first 20 seconds of meeting you, somebody knows if they like you or not. There are people who have watched this who, within 30 seconds of hearing me talk, have decided whether they like me or not. This is how it works. And if the audience don't like you, it's a lot harder to sell your book, because the audience will criticize you. They'll look for things to nitpick. But if they like you, they'll give you that leeway. And for marketing yourself, you've got to do that. So, I mean, for myself, Jack Gatland was a complete non-entity. Nobody knew who he was. I did myself a web page. I created a mail light mailing list. I went onto Book Funnel and Story Origin and created pages. I did a Goodreads page, and on everything, I joined loads of Facebook groups for obviously for crime. And I contacted them all and said, look, hello, I'm Jack Gatland. I'm a pen name for somebody else. I made it from the start. Everybody always knew I was a pen name. And I said, look, I've got this book out or coming out. And one thing I was told very early on by Barry or by J.D. Kirk was have something to give.
Yeah.
So when I was writing Letter from the Dead, I actually stopped about 30,000 words in and wrote a 15,000 word prequel called Liquidate the Profits, which is about cryptocurrency, and there's a body found. And it's basically, it was tough because the first book's an origin story. So, you know, I've got, this is Declan and this is why he's here. And now I've got to write a story that explains about Declan without really talking about Declan. But this 15,000 word book, when it was done, and it's a full mystery, it's a full solving a crime, it then became a, hey, look, you don't know who I am. I'm a complete unknown. But if you join my readers group, I'll give you a free book. And then you can leave. You know, there's nothing more to it. Free ebook, you can read it. And they would join, they would download the ebook. And that ebook had who I was, gave them, you know, the book, gave them a little bit of back matter about the areas I'd used, and then gave a chapter of Letter from the Dead, the first chapter of Letter from the Dead. And then said, if you like it, here's a link to buy it.
Yeah.
And that way I wasn't forcing it down their throat. I was going, look, you know, here's a book, give it a go. And I've been on Facebook groups, and there's been people who have said, oh, I'm looking for a new story to read, or a new crime writer, has anybody got ideas? And I've gone, look, you know, here's my book, give it a go. You know, I'm not fussed about making money from these people. I want people to enjoy the stories. You know, I've made money. I've done film and TV and other stuff. This is, for me, this is me finding my love again of writing. And the fact that Jack's done so amazingly well, I mean, he's rocketing up. I mean, I'm number 17 or something like that in conspiracy thrillers. He has done, in 6 months and 4 books, I'm probably 5 times higher than I thought I would be at this point. And next month it's going to be even higher. It's insane. But a lot of that is because I've been polite on boards. I've been friendly. The advertising, I haven't done much. I've done a little bit of Amazon advertising, but that's it. Most of it, and this is the thing I say to anybody who does indies, is content is king. Crime writers like me, but like David Gatworth, like Barry, or like JD Kirk, or, you know, A.D. Fox, or, you know, all the others, we're the modern day Penny Dreadful writers. You know, Arthur Conan Doyle wrote, my mind's gone completely blank. Black Dog. Hound of the Baskervilles. He wrote Hound of the Baskervilles in the space of 3 weeks. You know, he would write serialized stories and give them to a monthly thing. They were never edited, and the agents didn't negotiate them. They were written, put out, and done. And that's what we're doing now. And that's how we're playing it. And if you can get to 3 or 4 books, everything changes. And I found that the difference in sales, and this isn't money wise, this is because I'm on Kindle Unlimited and stuff like that, but the interest in the books between having 3 books out and having 4 books out is double, if not more, because people see, oh, there's 4 books, I'll give that a go, because it's proven that there's more. If you've got 1 or 2 books out, people don't want that. They want to carry on. They want to chew up the books. So for concussion there, I would literally say, keep writing, get them out. Don't be a dick. Get on forums and be known and be seen. Advertise other people, and they will advertise you. Get onto promotions and things like that. Just be seen and have a good cover. Not seriously, have a good cover and have good blurb, so that when they go onto your Amazon page, they read the book and they go, "Oh Christ, I want that." And I changed my blurb. I changed my blurb and I changed my prices about 3 months in, and overnight things changed.
Wow!
So you'll be stunned how quickly that changes. And always, always, when you release your book, always have the first chapter of the next book in it. Because then they get to read what they're going to be looking at next, and if they like it, well, they're going to have to buy it because they're now invested because they've read the first book.
Brilliant. So that's a lovely little link there, Tony, because obviously we're coming to the hour mark now. So where can people find your books?
God, sorry, I just waffled away for so long.
That was brilliant. So,
I'm on, obviously it's I'm on Amazon. You can buy them on Amazon as physical books, physical books. But mostly people buy them obviously as ebooks. If you're on Kindle Unlimited, which is kind of like the Netflix for books, you can download them all for free effectively. So you can get those. My website is jackgatland.com. So if you go to jackgatland.com, you'll find a list of all the books and where to find them. It will also have a link to my Readers Club. And if you click on my Readers Club and join, you then obviously get given a free book. So hooray, that's quite nice.
Happy days.
And yeah, but mostly it's Amazon, and in the local Amazon to where you live will have my books.
Brilliant. Well, Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you again, and I'm really looking forward to where the Jack Gatland series goes, and I'm really looking forward to getting copies of them and getting them read as well, because they sound absolutely amazing. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today on tonight's show.
Absolute pleasure. I'm glad Agate wasn't around, because obviously it's been more fun talking to you. Just wanted to say that. I know he's in the chat room, and I know he'll be crying, but I don't care.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, thanks guys. Please check out Tony's book.
No, yes, it's not the Netflix for books. It's the Prime Video for books. Thank you, RY. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
This is the comment that Tony was referenced to.
Kicked out.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Tony, obviously RY Ross Young, he's a much loved member of the writing community, and he said Tony is awesome, so he obviously reiterates everything that we all think.
And I know I talk way too much, so if anybody has any questions I haven't answered, I'm on Twitter as Mr. Tony Lee. I'm on Instagram and as Facebook as Mr. Tony Lee. Find me, ask you questions. I'm always happy to chat.
Brilliant. Well, now we get to do the bit where we wave, and then there's a video, I think, but they can hear us for a little bit after. So
I will mute my microphone.
Let's have a look. Where is it? There we go. So we wave. Bye, guys. Please join us on Monday or Wednesday. I'm not sure which one yet, but please join us for the next show. Oh, there we go. And then we end this lovely broadcast.